Solutions, the Hot Wax Hotline. Hot Wax Hotline. Hot Wax Hotline.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Hot Wax Hotline. We've got another great episode here for you today. I am your host, Colton Cox, and as usual, I've got a great guest for us today. I'd like to give him a little bit of an intro. This particular guest is a good friend of mine that when I first moved up to Kansas City, I moved up here in January of 2020. So then, of course, I got maybe 2 or 3 months of normal Kansas City before COVID started. So the first couple music friends I made here were all internet friends, which is a new experience for someone who was 28, I think, when I moved up here. So this is my, I was on the Kansas City area musicians page, and there was this guy on the page that was posting just all the time, right? And he was putting these goofy videos up there of him playing different covers and things like that, and just, you know, just fun videos. And I was like, I have to talk to this guy. So that is the man sitting with me today, none other than PK Music. Hi, PK. How's it going?
How are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm very happy to have you here with us.
I'm happy to be here for sure.
Are you nervous? Are you feeling?
I'm a little nervous. Yeah, I'll own that. Yeah.
Well, everybody comes on a little bit nervous, but usually by the time we do the first round of questions, they feel pretty comfortable about it. So
if there's anybody I'm happy to be interviewed by, it's a handsome gentleman like you. So,
well. We'll start with our first round. This is kind of, you know, a lightning round of questions that we like to call hard pressed.
Hard pressed. Okay.
This is one of my favorites. It's
depressed. Okay.
Depressed. Hard depressed.
That's.
But they're just simple questions that are pretty much meaningless.
Perfect.
Yours I've tailored especially. I always try to tailor a little bit, but I've tailored your questions to you specifically. Okay. So here we go. First question, and I think this is one that perhaps all of us want to know who have seen PK perform before. How long does it take you to get ready for a show?
You know, kind of got to. Yeah, I actually don't know how to answer that question. Yeah, I feel like.
Well, what's the process? What do you?
I kind of just go like, what do I want to play? And sometimes I kind of.
No, I mean your clothes is what I'm talking about.
Oh, how long? The clothes.
The fit.
The fit.
Yeah.
The fit. Wow.
It's important.
Well, today I was even thinking about wearing my Kurt Cobain look, which is my red and navy striped sweater and my pants. And then I was like, I noticed a grease stain and I was like, yeah, I want to look fired today. So I just got my leopard print pants and whatnot instead. I kind of wanted to be like a little bit less, but I was like, you know what?
Well, you look great.
Be on the internet.
It's a great look. It fits.
Yeah. The fit fits. Fair enough.
Yeah, I've known PK as someone who usually puts on a pretty solid fit for his performances.
That's awesome. Thank you.
He may not think so, but I think so.
I try for sure.
All right, I got another hard-hitting question for you here.
Yeah.
Is it okay for vegetarians to eat animal crackers?
Hey, it's totally. I mean, I don't know. Like I would go with graham crackers any day over animal crackers. Animal crackers suck to me.
The only thing I'll argue is
except the coated ones.
Yeah, the frosted.
Yeah, the frosted ones I can go through a fucking bag. Am I allowed to curse? Are we bleeding?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
No.
All right. Fuck
the children that watch the show.
Okay.
All right. So next question. This one is really for you, and I hope that I got the two choices for this right.
Okay.
Pink Floyd or Genesis.
Yes. As in both and the band, yes, 100%. I can't, okay, so here's the thing. Nursery Crime by Genesis is one of the greatest albums ever made. It's vital to what I do, but I would, of course, say Pink Floyd.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like Pink Floyd. If you go from basically metal excluding Obscured by Clouds, everything onward is just like, it's perfection. It's like,
well,
Momentary Lapse of Reason has a couple duds, but still has some amazing songs on it. And yeah, it's like, and Genesis, like, yeah, it's mostly nursery crime for me. So it's kind of like, almost kind of like one album plus Watcher of the Skies.
And you know, I wasn't 100% certain if you were a Genesis guy or not.
Yeah.
And
I appreciate him for sure.
all the other bands that I could think of were more like kind of modern bands like Tame Impala, like people I knew that you like listened to.
Worshipped. Yeah. Everything I do is inspired by Tame Impala to some extent.
Well, so I was trying to stick to relatively the same sound.
Yeah.
So.
If it's prog, I probably am at least a little bit into it.
Well, another hard-hitting question for you. Super Mario Bros. Or Legend of Zelda?
Super Mario World.
Ah, okay.
That's. I mean, I could still play it now, and it was constant as a kid. And,
okay.
And you know, and honestly, maybe even more so though, Donkey Kong Country.
Oh man!
I mean,
Donkey Kong Country.
It's just incredible. One of the greatest video game scores, and like you get. But what I will say for Zelda, I would say. It's the greatest game where you can run around and do nothing. You just like listen to music and attack chickens. They're like, you know.
Yeah, I've always been a pretty hardcore Legend of Zelda fan. But I mean, I've played both series, like almost all of the games. Mario, it's a lot harder because there's so many friggin' Mario games.
Yeah.
But
and of course, I'm a big Super Smash Bros. Melee.
Yes, of course. My final question for you of our not so fast lightning round questions is: would you go to a movie alone?
I have. I remember one of my favorite film-going experiences was in the summer of 2009 when I was 13 going on 14 when I went to go see Drag Me to Hell, which was like brutal. I mean, it was perfect for the time. It was just like, I'm just going to go down. I even saw it. It was great to do that. I saw X-Men Origins with Wolverine that like everybody hates, but at the time it was amazing because I was fucking 14 and I was just like, oh.
That was back when I feel like superhero movies still had that like campy quality to them that is kind of just gone
now.
now.
You know, that's funny because I definitely consider all these Avengers movies to have a lot. If it's not campy, it's getting corny after a while. If I hear another like one-liner, like I'm so over one, like in Black Panther where he's like, what are those? I'm like, you fucking forced and like I hated it.
I just always think of like
I didn't hate Black Panther. I hated that joke.
I always think of another considered terrible superhero movie, Batman and Robin. Like how that movie feels compared to like the super serious, like all the time Batman movies now.
Yeah.
I yearn for those days sometimes.
Well, you know, I will say Batman Forever was constantly being watched in my house growing up, and I can appreciate it on two levels for nostalgia and as just a disaster piece. It is a complete dumpster fire.
Batman
of a
Forever,
movie.
is that the Val Kilmer one?
Yeah, and I will say it does have an incredible score. Like Elliot Goldenthal or whatever his name is, who also scored Interview with the Vampire. Great composer. I love those two scores. Fire.
Well, I suppose that's a good place to go into our, kind of talking about you as an artist and stuff like that. So normally I ask, how you got started with music. With you, though, one thing that you and I have always talked a lot about is soundtracks to not only movies, but TV shows and stuff like that. And I feel like that's got to be a pretty big influence.
That's hilarious because, there was a period of time before it was basically between, I'd say, maybe 10 to 12 before I got into Pink Floyd and rock bands, like, even Rolling Stones and The Who and whatever. It was like where I would just like rent soundtracks from the library. That's what I was into before rock music.
Yeah.
And of course I did like the movie Across the Universe a lot.
Oh,
It got me into the Beatles. It was
who
kind
didn't really?
Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely some covers of Beatles songs in that movie that are
100%. But
it's a solid movie.
Well, and I mean the Strawberry Fields Forever scene alone is incredible. So but totally soundtracks and friggin' I don't know.
Soundtracks and I know one thing that we talked about when we first started hanging out and stuff was that when we first started becoming friends, you had been playing keyboard for a little while, but you had really like dove deep into it. I think maybe like a year or so before you and I started hanging.
No,
I don't know the whole story.
I would So I would say probably about a little over 3 years, because my first gig I always remember was January of 2018, so
Oh, okay,
just over
okay.
5 years ago now, and then like I released an album that year that I discard, and my debut album will hopefully come out later this year. In
Yeah.
a sense, we'll see, but yeah, and I did a lot of gigs, probably 12 or something, like at least one a month for 2019 or something like that.
Yeah.
And then, of course, 2020 hit.
Okay. Yeah, maybe that's my perspective was skewed because we both were not gigging at that time.
Well, yeah, and you saw me on the social media, so
Yeah.
that's where you'd probably be like, oh, now he's kind of doing the thing. But I've been doing it for a while. Technically, my origin was like, I was initially a drummer.
Oh, okay.
And I didn't want to be necessarily. Like I had a shitty person in my life who like kind of wanted to, like I kind of wanted to do guitar, and he kind of wanted me to be a drummer, and I'm like, yeah. And then eventually I even tried guitar chords, and that didn't really work. But I found an old shitty. Everybody has those generic silver Yamaha keyboards in their house.
Yeah.
And I found an old one.
Guilty.
And yeah, and I found I found very quickly. Certainly within 2 years, that like, making melodies feels a lot more powerful and moving to me than ever just drumming. Like like it feels. I mean, and again, not knocking any drummer. Like I appreciate the craft, but it's definitely not the thing that speaks to me.
We're knocking drummers. You know what's wrong with you. No, I'm kidding. Drummers are honestly some of my favorite people. It's bass players.
You're saying that to get them.
Bass players that I have a real problem with. Jeff is silent over there.
Continue the joke. And basically
picked up keyboard and just
picked up keyboard, and it unintentionally just became the perfect thing. And by this time, 10 years ago, I was already like really feeling it, because I was listening to a lot of Yes, which hasn't stopped necessarily. And Rick Wakeman is kind of aesthetically certainly, but also in a lot of senses kind of musically one of my basically my idol of like, hey, I would kind of like to be the modern Rick Wakeman in some way, like just kind of not as flashy and crazy. Like I don't think I can do that, but when I can, I don't know what I'm saying. But.
I was thinking about bands to ask you the this or this question for you. And I was like, I know there's one other than Pink Floyd. It's not Genesis. What is it? Yes, obviously.
Yes,
I don't know why that like escaped my brain.
Yes is life. I mean, it's like outside of Pink Floyd, if we're talking prog, there's only one competitor.
Yeah.
And I basically from like maybe their second album to their the end of the 70s, they were just dropping some of the greatest music I've ever heard to this day. A lot of it holds up really well. So.
My introduction to Yes was in School of Rock.
Oh,
when he's assigning CDs to the kids, and he's like, "Yes, that's the name of the band. Listen to the keyboard solo on Roundabout."
That's a really proper impression of Jack Black.
I have seen School of Rock probably more times than any other movie.
It's a fantastic movie, honestly.
It's a
when I was
masterpiece.
8, like that movie was lit as fuck. I saw it with my cousins and everything. Amazing. Great film.
Well, moving on.
Dark Side of the Moon. Listen to track 4.
So, origin story, we kind of just got the origin story and also talked about, soundtrack influence, all that kind of stuff.
Et cetera, et cetera.
Yes. So my next question for you is about the song that you're going to be performing for us today. So Night Again is the name of the song, correct?
Yes.
So is there a particular story behind it? Is there any particular influences, any of that kind of stuff? Just tell me about
I got a lot of things going for it. So it was one of the, well, I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say, like, all the songs for Seeking Oblivion, the album I wish to release this year, sort of started coming together in early to mid 2018. And by the fall, it was like I had basically 10 tracks, which will inevitably end up being the album. But Night Again was somewhere in there. And I remember specifically its origin was I watched the feature-length motion picture from Japan, Audition, with a gentleman in the room, and we were in this. There was a brief period where I was not even in my original room. I was just kind of in this tiny, like, I don't know. It was it was a little cramped in this room. I was
Sure.
it was in my house, and we had the TV, like this big TV right in front of us. And by the end of that movie, I was like feeling nervous going to the bathroom. I just felt like off.
Yeah.
Like it was so eerie. That movie has a great sense of sound and like just makes you feel anxious by its whole thing. But yeah, I started. I like was like trying to like listen to Fleetwood Mac and relax, and it just wasn't happening. So I went to my keyboard and I started working on this song, and it became kind of like, oh, if there's like a song I would want to release as a single, this would probably be it on the album. And initially I had kind of, it almost had like a Portishead sound. It kind of had like it had this guitar synth plug in that was a little, you know, like a very 90s like you know, Massive Attack and stuff like that. But now I'm using a Salina Ensemble plugin, which is basically most famous for being used by Rick Wright and Pink Floyd for like Welcome to the Machines, the string sounds in there, and in Dogs.
Cool.
2 of their best songs. Dogs is their best, but in my humble opinion. But yeah. And so it kind of actually sounds a little bit like Clockwork Orange, which the opening, the funeral for Queen Mary, which is one of my favorite pieces of music ever. It's like, yeah, it's everything I could ever want is in that piece of music.
Well, that's certainly something that I've always really liked about your stuff is that you do have a fair number of these kind of, you know, gloomy, like dark synth atmospheric stuff going on. But then you've also got tunes that you've just got, you know, a really nice beat or like a cool riff that goes with it, something like that. So I think if it's the song that I'm thinking of, then I think this is a great choice of kind of encapsulating all of the Jacob.
Well, again, I'm
songs.
not sure you've heard this one, but you
Maybe
might
not.
have. But we'll see.
We'll see.
Either way, as my first album was titled, I hope you like it. We'll see.
Well, all right. Well, so do you have kind of a unifying theme of how your songs tie together, or is it just a lot of different things that kind of somehow just slot together?
Yeah, they all kind of came together in that. Are you talking about this album specifically, or just
album
in general?
specifically?
Yeah,
you
yeah.
talk about the album or just
go.
your music in general?
Yeah. So yeah. Basically, with this album, it was written in a time of extreme distress and anxiety, and you know, there's a song on the album that's like my version of what a panic attack is like. There's another song kind of about dissociating, and even a song at the end that's about suicide, and this song that I'm going to play today, Night Again, is very much in that. I hope it's a theme that a lot of people can relate to, and I don't want to you know, speak for like addicts or anything, but it's kind of, I think it speaks well as a metaphor for when you're going through a good run for a while and everything kind of creeps back in and darkness. And for me, it was like, it was a really, it felt, to me, the song felt like a proper, like, sorrow, depression, darkness, bad is like coming back in really hard. And you know, in general, my entire, what, you know, and this is not what I set out initially, but lately, it's very much the intentions of my music are about both feeling as much as possible and releasing melodies that I feel make me feel and hopefully will help other people feel and help people, you know, I'm trying to process a lot of trauma in my life, and I want that to be a big part of my music. I actually am also going to start, I mean, I already have started singing for about a year now.
Yeah.
And I very much want to make that more of a thing. I might split my act into 2 different acts. I don't know yet, but basically I started singing and writing last year after a long stint of not. And I think
when I first met you, you were an instrumentalist,
right?
Really, so.
Yeah, and it, you know, writing has given me a great place to channel a lot of thoughts and feelings and darkness and project it out and get it out of me. And I don't know. I think it's a, you know, basically healing is one of the things I'm aiming for through my music and through life in general.
I definitely think you're doing a great job with that. I think, you know, we've played a few shows together now at this point, and I always
I feel like you do a really good job of kind of empathizing with the audience, and you crack your dumb jokes and stuff like that up there. But like, I think most of the time, what I've seen when you play a show, you have won people over by the end of it.
Wow.
So
okay,
that's my perspective.
Nah, for sure. I mean, I would. It'd be awesome if that happens more and more over time, and I got a couple thousand people out there.
Right. Yeah, that's the hope for all of us. Well, yeah. So I guess really the only question I have left for you is what are the future plans? I know you have a gig here or there coming up soon, but
I actually don't have any gigs coming up yet. I don't believe in the time being. That doesn't mean I'm not gonna. I might talk to my homie Ben from the
Rhino.
The Rhino.
shout
out to him. Yeah. Hey. We maybe you and I get something going there. We'll
maybe
see.
you put me on the bill.
Yeah. I mean, outside of that, I actually think, for the time being, I'm not going to rule out gigs, but there's a good time to kind of say it out loud. It's like, yeah, I might spend way more time focusing on recording and maybe figuring stuff out there. And again, this album is 5 years old almost now, and it's like,
I know the feeling.
It's and it's like I want to put it out. This is my goth record that technically is 10 years in the making. I remember like in 2013, I was kind of like, there's all these albums, like one big at the time was like Neon Bible by Arcade Fire,
yeah.
dark albums, Unknown Pleasure by Joy Division. Mm-hmm. Technically, people would say Closer's even darker. The both of them count. It's like there's all kinds of like albums that like, oh, that's a dark. There's a lot of darkness. It's moody. It's eerie. And I actually often don't do a lot of like super eerie stuff. I'll do sad stuff, but it's like this album has a lot of eerie again that just kind of came out of me. It's like I'm feeling anxious, and it just hit.
I definitely feel like atmospheric is a good word for your music.
It's
very.
That's what I'd like.
Moody. I almost always think of like kind of dark goth type music, but that's not fully what you do. You do have songs that venture away from that.
Yeah, so. for sure, and also like for the record, it's the big four of goth are huge influences on this upcoming album. It is Joy Division, and I don't care they weren't wearing eye makeup, they were doing that. They were doing goth and The Cure and Disintegration specifically, Susie and the Banshees. I think it was Juju and the awesome album right before or after that with Kaleidoscope, amazing album, and then Bauhaus, and those are the big four. Yeah, love them.
You've named so many people that you listen to.
Name dropping.
Well, I think that's all the questions I have for you today. So we're gonna have you perform your song here in just a second.
Cheers.
Before we do that, cheers. Before we do that, I just want to say thanks to everybody for calling in today to the Hot Wax Hotline. Stick around for the performance, and we'll see Night Again by PK Music. And now presenting Night Again by PK Music.